We now know, Simon, that a verdict in the Premier League's legal battle with Manchester City over the 115 case is now unlikely to arrive before the summer. So we've had a long wait, and it's been a very long wait, and that long wait has suddenly got longer. Back in February, this was Pep on the 115.
Respect. The other one will be, I think, soon. In 1 month, I think, will be the verdict, and to do it. And the sentence, and after we'll see my opinion about what happened so far. Still, at the end, every club can do whatever they want, right? If we can spend it, we have the money. The money, because in the last 5 years, 3 years, in the last 10, we are the third. And the last 5, in the last third, winning what we won. We are behind the top 6 teams. So I'm sorry for the comments. That's why I'm not agreeing.
Okay, so that was Pep in February suggesting we might know in a month. So that would suggest March. We're now halfway.
He doesn't know anymore.
We're now halfway through April. Well, he might not, Simon, but he might not have said anything had he not been given some kind of tidbit of information. Anyway, that's conjecture on my part. So we now know we've got a long wait, and the wait's got longer. The bottom line is this. It's more than 2 years since the Premier League announced the charges against City in February 2023, and approaching 6.5 years since they first began their investigations into the football club. City, for their part, as we know, Simon, deny any wrongdoing, say they have irrefutable evidence that will clear the club. How can it be that the elephant in the room can remain in play for so long?
Well, we know that the Premier League decided to go in behind UEFA and allow UEFA to do their investigation first. We also know that Man City have not been particularly cooperative, whatever you think of that, whether you think that somebody being alleged of something should be particularly cooperative. I think that they should, not because they're obliged to, because if they've got irrefutable evidence, they'd want to ram it down the face of their accusers as quickly as possible and perhaps negate them taking action that could be challenging for the Premier League going forward. But they haven't decided to operate that way. If you remember 18 months ago, I said, and it was laughed off by people, that this could run and run and run and run towards almost the end of the decade. And if we see an outcome that's adverse to Manchester City in the summer and an outcome that's unbearably adverse to them, rather than say a smack on the wrist for non-cooperation, but real challenging, then we could see another 2 or 3 years of this in terms of appeals and challenges. Of course, Man City, when the original construct of the independent panel that was going to adjudicate them, there was members from football clubs that supported football clubs that they didn't like. So Man City went through the process. And I think there is a process that flows, that takes time through the legal system. Now, the fact that it's taking this amount of time, I don't know what it tells us. Some people say the quicker these things come out. I remember with the Ian Dowie fraud case, which is one of the most difficult cases to prove in English law, which is fraudulent misrepresentation, which is one person's word against another. That verdict came out pretty quick, and they found him guilty of it. Some people say if they come out quick, it means that they're very confident in what they're doing. Others say that you can't read anything into it. What I suggest to you is that people are being very meticulous in ensuring that whatever judgment they come out with, or judgments, are impenetrable, because nobody really wants to produce a judgment from a legal framework point of view, as much as this is a legal framework, to be overturned on appeal, and overturned because you've made grave errors. So I think it's being very considered. What difference does it make? I think the most important thing to do is get to the right judgments. Yes, I know that people are intrigued, and yes, I know that Man City their fans want an outcome so they can blow raspberries at people that have ever accused them of anything. And those that want Man City to be guilty, if Man City to be guilty, we want to be able to turn around and say, okay, what are we going to do now? You've cheated your way to things. I'm more relaxed about it. I would rather there be a really significant outcome rather than some fudged hodgepodge, which is a trade-off of deal-making that ultimately gets an outcome where nobody gets made to look poor for something. And by that I mean the Premier League for bringing charges that they have no substance for, or Man City for being able to perhaps get around something that they do have substance being accused of.
Sure. I can imagine if it was world leaders here making some groundbreaking decision, then it would take a considerable period of time. The hearing concluded in December.
Sure.
We're at April.
Yep.
They've been immersed in it for so long. And I agree with you completely, Simon. What we don't want is anything rushed out there, and it went out there because it was rushed.
With respect, it's not their full-time job. They're not just devoted to this task. Now, that might be unacceptable to you, and it might be unacceptable to people that are waiting to hear the verdict.
I agree with you, but do you not think in the meantime the image of the Premier League remains tarnished while the case lays unresolved?
Yes and no. I mean, it's not doing it any harm in terms of there's intrigue behind it. The global audience for the Premier League is growing and growing and growing. The overseas deals are getting bigger and bigger. Each league has its own challenges. You've had corruption in Italy. You've had challenges in Spain. You've had potential, to use your expressions, meltdown of the two biggest clubs, or certainly one of the biggest clubs in Spanish football. You've had all those challenges around the refereeing fraternity in Spain and corruption as a result of that. So each league, as a part of the construct of football now, given the fact there's so much intrigue and so much opportunity around it, produces its own damaging and rewarding principles, perhaps in equal measure. I don't think it diminishes the Premier League.
You don't think so?
I don't think. Listen, who wants it? The fact of the matter is that they're taking it on. I want there to be a definite outcome. I want there to be an unequivocal, non-debatable, non-negotiable outcome. We have this debate about what happened in the Court of Arbitration of Sport, where the Man City side of the argument will say that they were unequivocally exonerated. Others would say you really weren't. There were different boundaries, different burdens of proof. The ridiculous argument that the conspiracy theories, I've had it with Stefan. In order for this to have happened, a lot of people, Stefan Borson, a lot of people had to colluded. Yeah, they did. That's how we got the post office. That's how we got Enron. These things are not beyond the wit of man. When you sit there and say, "Oh, a lot of people wouldn't have done this because there's so many people with reputations on the line," don't be so bloody stupid. That's how conspiracies become conspiracies.
I get that. I totally agree with you in that you don't want anything rushed out there and then it's appealed and there's a back and forth, and as you rightly say, before we know where we are, we're at the end of the decade. We do not want that. But even at the Sports Journalism Awards the other night, Simon, I heard a couple of people say to me, "Yeah, but we still don't know what's happening with City yet." Even in a taxi the other day, I was talking to a cab driver and we got onto Manchester City and he said, "You heard anything on that?" But we still don't know what's going to happen to City yet.
When you actually think about what they're being accused of, and I know the allegations are very significant because they're alleging fraud and accountancy misrepresentations, the whole thing's a bloody joke. Anyway, in the first place, because whilst PSR was brought in to perhaps do something, it's done the polar opposite. The only people that have got benefits out of PSR are Chelsea because they were never caught by it when they originally went into football, and Roman Abramovich decided to set the place on fire because there was no governance. And now Chelsea watching what PSR's doing and being able to structure their business model to be able to meet the outcomes that other people have been the victims of.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is a joke because Man City really should have been allowed, as much as I've pivoted on this, should have been allowed to build their business how they wanted. Should have been able to build their business and to be able to invest in their football club and provide the sustainability argument for the Football League, and the rest of it should have been left well alone. Now, it doesn't mean that by the governance at the time that if they are guilty of it, they shouldn't be consequenced.
Yeah.
But the rules and the construct of football now is becoming a joke. We're spending our whole time allowing a huge industry to develop along the side of it, which is the legal side of it, which is now making more money out of bloody football than probably even that delightful species we've just spoken about, which is the agents. The legal profession now sitting there going, this is a license to print money. Look at what's happening in football. Look at what's going on. It's an endless challenge.
Yeah.
Correct. An endless opportunity.
Absolutely agree with you. City, in the meantime, deny any wrongdoing and say they have, quotes, irrefutable evidence that will clear the club. Meantime, we wait and wait and wait.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.